All righty, I think we're live. Hopefully we'll start hearing some, there we go. You can see that we're live now. All right. We'll wait just a little bit and let some people join us. Trying to make sure that we're actually on Facebook.
I'd have to go to my phone.
Let's see. Yep, there we are. I see us. We're there. And there's 3 people who are joining us. Why don't you tell us where you're from, who you are? Hey, there's Rebecca. Rebecca's here. Good to see you, Rebecca.
Hi, Rebecca. I am from Nebraska. I'm currently living in St. Joseph, Missouri, which is an hour north of Kansas City.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Facebook attendees, let us know where you're from.
We'd love to hear that. We have 4 people. There's Susan. Susan's here. Hello, Susan. Hello, Nancy. So good to see everybody. We'll just let it go just a little bit longer. Give us a chance to get more people on board. Rebecca says she's from Olathe in Kansas. They had a tornado yesterday.
Yeah,
that is crazy.
That is, because it was not that warm.
Oh, Nancy's from Central Illinois, and Susan's from Chicago. Well, the suburbs of Chicago. So that's great. Anybody else out there? We'd love to hear from you. Cindy Berger. Hey, Deb. Congratulations. Good to see you again.
It's good to see you, Cindy. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah. Susan had a crazy snowstorm yesterday. And we had a lot of rain. My brother lives in Colorado, and they had a lot of snow. In fact, they went without power for quite a while, overnight and quite a bit into the next day. It was getting a little hairy there. We've got Robin Melvin here from Mokina, south suburb of Chicago. And then we have Nancy Cowart from the Deep South. I probably mispronounced that. I am so sorry. All right. Well, we want to get started. Hi, I want to welcome all of you to our first ever Facebook Live broadcast. This is taking some doing. It's taking me back in time a bit too. I haven't done television for probably 15 years or so. Actually, it's been longer than that. We're not going to count any more than that. But I never was on this end of it. I was always the photographer and not the host. So you'll have to forgive me for that. But we wanted to celebrate the release of Debra Butterfield's new book, Claiming Your Inheritance. And we thought it would be a good time to get everybody together and have a little chat here on Facebook. And so I want to welcome Debra to the broadcast.
It's good to be here, Tammy. I feel like a kid in a candy store.
Yeah. Well, this is going to be an interesting thing because like I said, neither one of us have done this before. And so, and we're playing with technology that's brand new to us. So this will be fun, but we're excited about this. So Deb, let's get started. Why don't you start off by just telling us a little bit about yourself, your history and how you got started in writing.
I started writing when I was like a pre-teenager back in the days of the original Star Trek show. And I wrote what is today called fan fiction. So myself and a neighbor, we would write little Star Trek stories, or I did. I don't know what kind of story she wrote, but we wrote stories together, and that's kind of how I got started writing. But I didn't actually take it anywhere until I was 45 years old. And that's when I applied for a copywriter job with Focus on the Family. And then in 2006, launched out into the freelance world of being a book writer.
Wow. So what did you do while you were at Focus, and then what moved you into that freelance writing genre?
The work I did for Focus was, it varied a lot. You know, I wrote online copy for the products that they sold. I worked on Dr. Dobson's newsletter in different ways, you know, writing the tagline that went on the outside of the envelope and other stuff. It was quite varied. But then in 2005, I left Focus. I moved away. I moved to Missouri from Colorado. And during the time that I worked at Focus, though, everybody was so encouraging and helpful. And I received a lot of healing from just the wounds that I had received in life while I was at Focus. It was very much a God thing that took me there. When I moved to Missouri, of course, I was looking for a full-time job, never could find a full-time job. So it was like, well, okay, I guess it's time to write that book everybody was telling me to write. So that's really kind of how I got started as a writer.
Okay, great. Excuse me while I play with buttons. And that's when we met, is when you moved to St. Joe. We met when I was working at the newspaper there, and we had a women's magazine, and you became one of our freelance writers, and that's where we met.
Yeah.
Who would have thought? All these years later.
Yeah, really.
Crazy.
And then you left St. Joe. Why did you do that?
You know, I left St. Joe. All right. So most of your writing up until that point had been, at this point you're writing freelance magazine articles, essentially, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then you got more into the editing world. Am I right?
Yes. Uh-huh. And you're the one that brought me into that world too. So, because you asked me if I would be interested in editing manuscripts, and that's how I got started editing. I don't know that I ever would have really thought about it myself if someone had not asked me first.
Mm. Well, you have that skill. I mean, you have that skill to see those things that other people just aren't able to see. So I'm glad you said yes.
So am I.
So you've been doing more nonfiction. You've written some nonfiction books. Let's go ahead and talk about those for just a minute. You have a Bible study. You have a devotional, and you have several devotionals under your belt. Kind of talk about some of those other nonfiction type books that you had been writing up until this point.
Well, there's the first one that I did, which was Carried by Grace. It was originally published in 2007 under the title Help, My Husband Has Sexually Abused My Daughter. And then I revised it and doubled it in size. And that's kind of part devotional, part memoir. And that's the book that my coworkers at Focus encouraged me to write. They knew that story. They brought me through the healing process of all of that. And they knew my desire to be a writer and often encouraged me, you need to write a book. And so that was the book that I did first when I came to Missouri. The Bible study, Unshakable Faith, is a book that God just said, I want you to write this. And I wrote it because the church just isn't doing a very good job in discipling people that come to be born again, or even, start coming to church. And that is so needed in the church today. And so God said, I want you to write this. And I spent a good year just studying and putting together everything that I had learned over 40 years of being a born-again Christian and put it into the Bible study. So, and of course, the other books are the anthology devotionals that we've done for Cross River.
Yeah, we've got some great devotions there, and really, I think they do a really good job, I think, of showing It's called the Abba series. We call it the Abba series. And we've got Abba's Heart. Well, Abba's Heart that's getting ready to be published, hopefully this year, maybe 2022. But we have Abba's Answers and Abba's Promise. Yeah. And so, yeah, those are really good ones. We've got Kathy Krabby from Texas saying she's a big fan.
Yes, she's such a great cheerleader.
She is. Yeah. She is. Kedzie says, hi, Mom. So that's my daughter, Kedzie. Hey, Kedzie. Glad to see you here. And Rebecca and Robin both talk about how they love Carried by Grace. And Rebecca says it's had such an impact. Yeah. So Cindy Berger says she so enjoyed the Bible study. So that's great to know.
That's awesome. Yeah.
That's awesome.
The Carried by Grace, I every once in a while I will get an email from a reader, and I love it when they reach out to me. And Kathy Krabby had me on her podcast doing an interview, and I was just blown away with how many people have downloaded that interview. There were 2 episodes, and between the 2 episodes, they have been downloaded over 300,000 times. Wow. So it's just so wonderful to know that I can take that terrible experience and that God has turned it around and allowed me to help other mothers get through it who are experiencing it. And that's what the book was all about, because it's so important to have somebody that when you're going through a crisis, it's always nice to have somebody alongside of you who has gone through the same thing and can really understand where you're at. And that's what that book was all about.
Yeah. It's a powerful book. And I think, if you have anybody in your life that has gone through something similar to that, I would recommend that you pick that book up and maybe offer it as a gift. It just has a lot of it offers hope and healing and God's love. And so it's been a big godsend, I think, for a lot of people. Deb Allard says, thanks for inviting me to listen to Deb's interview. And let's see, Kathy says Fireside Talk Radio. She'll look for the titles so that she can put that in the chat there so you guys can check that out. So, all right. So let's, we are close to get our first giveaway. We're getting close here. If you are interested in winning a free Kindle copy of Deb's new book called Claiming Her Inheritance, go ahead and put some comments in the chat, and we're going to be drawing a name out here in just a couple of minutes for something like that. So for the Kindle. So we'd love to have you take part in that. Let's go ahead and start talking about this book, Deb. Claiming Her Inheritance. Where did that come from? Actually, let's go back just a little bit. Let's start talking about you started out with writing a short fiction piece a few years ago. Is that right? You had a short piece of fiction that you put out?
Yes, Mystery on Maple Hill. That started as a short story for a writing course. And the original short story was published in an anthology book with Pamela Sonnenmoser. And when I decided to make it into a short story, of course, I expanded on it. But it's definitely a short story. It's only about 7,000 words long. And it's only. Only, yeah. I mean, when you deal with 80,000, 7,000 doesn't sound like a whole lot.
I'm sure.
So, but it's available only on Kindle. But yeah, that was my first foray with fiction into the publishing world, but it certainly wasn't the first fiction story that I had ever started and started writing. It just happened to be the first one that I managed to finish.
I think that's the way a lot of fiction writers are. They've got a lot of little piles of little stories that they've started, and see which one gets done first. All right, so go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, Susan Mura has been kind enough to monitor the comments, and she is picking the winners. And she just notified me that Cindy Berger is the winner of my Kindle.
Yay,
version.
Cindy!
So Cindy, just go ahead and email me at deb@crossrivermedia.com, and that way I have an email address to send you your Kindle. Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations. You're going to love this book. It's going to be great. All right. So, Deb, let's talk then a little bit let's start talking about claiming her inheritance. Where did you get the idea for this book? We're not going to talk so much about what it is yet, but how did the idea come about?
Okay, the idea came about because I was in Jerry Jenkins Writers Guild course. And I had to write a scene for a specific purpose. Don't remember what the purpose was. Maybe it was to show emotion, I think. But I didn't have any fiction stories started at the time. So I just had to come up with this idea. And I don't even know where the idea came from. I just came up with the idea of these two characters locked in a challenge to buy the same magazine. And, the man who owns a cattle ranch throws out this challenge to survive 4 weeks at his ranch because he thinks she's a sophisticated city girl. And that's where the idea started. And of course, it morphed an awful lot in between 2009 and now.
I imagine so. So tell me a little bit about this writing process. How did you go about doing this and developing your characters and all that kind of stuff?
Well, I have a specific template that I use with my characters where I actually develop their history. So, I write down all the physical descriptions and I actually think about their history because their history affects the present. So, emotional things that maybe they went through, any kind of trauma or, just whatever the case may be. And I develop those for each of the main characters in the story. And I do all of my writing in Scrivener. So then when I got ready to actually work on the story, I began to develop the plot. I knew how I wanted it to end. I knew what the challenge was, but there was an awful lot in between that had to be developed. And to develop that, I use Randy Ingermanson's snowflake method for my plotting. So, okay. And then I just spend all my time at the computer, and my desktop computer. I usually have music playing. Music very much triggers my creative side of my brain. And so I almost always have music playing. And I play music based on the kind of mood I'm trying to generate in the scenes that I'm writing. So it sounds odd, but it really does make a difference for me. So
if it's a Christmas scene, you're playing Christmas music. If it's...
Yeah. Probably would be, yeah.
Makes sense to me. So then in this process, then you really get to know your characters before before you even write the first words.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. To me, that's very important to know my character before I start writing, because if you don't really know how that character is going to act or react to certain things. I have read some books where, to me, the characters seem to react in a way that was totally not in accordance with their personality based on what that writer had already established. So, having those things established allows you to put in the emotions, but it also keeps you on track. A lot of writers say, hey, my characters took over. And sometimes they do that for me. A scene will go in one way that I hadn't quite anticipated. But in general, I don't find that happening very often because I already have such a good grip on who my characters are and where they've been and what they've been through. So it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Okay, we have a question from Cindy Berger, she asked, was it difficult to make a switch from nonfiction to fiction?
No. No, it wasn't, Cindy. My passion is fiction. And like I said, I started writing fiction stories when I was like 12 years old. And when even as an adult, I was taking writing courses with the intent of writing fiction. So, like I said, I have a lot of fiction stories that I have started but just never finished. But now I'm at a point in my life where I'm going to go back to several of those stories and rework the plots and the characters and finish those stories and get them published. But yeah, I love writing fiction. I would way rather write fiction than nonfiction. So
that's awesome.
So no more
so there's going to be
nonfiction.
more books.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. And Kathy asked, do you edit as you write? Because you are one of you're our editor at Cross River. You edit just about every book we put out. And I think it might be every book that we put out. And so it's curious, do you edit yourself as you write?
Not as
Or
I
do you
write.
write it and then go back and edit?
So my writing process involves I'll spend an hour. I mean, sometimes I spend more time. I mean, I might just write all day. But the next day when I get ready to write again, I go back and read through everything I wrote the previous day. And yes, I will edit when I reread what I have written the prior day, but I'm only editing, minor things. I might add some description of something or, correcting typos, that kind of stuff. But the overall editing, I don't do until I finish the entire book because, I can't check for plot holes and, character arcs and all that kind of stuff until I've gotten to the very end. But yes, I do. I always reread and edit what I wrote the day before.
Okay. And then Susan has the question of, do you have someone else edit your books as well as you?
Well, you have somewhat. And I do have a critique group who reads through my stories, and I have had beta readers who have read through my stories and given feedback. But to say that I've actually hired an editor per se, no. Aside from the work that you've done, Tammy, that's my professional editing right there.
Yeah, well, you're pretty darn good at it. Rebecca wants to know if this book, and we haven't really gone into the whole idea of what this book is about. We've kind of touched on it a little bit, but is Claiming Her Inheritance going to have a sequel, or is it going to be part of a series?
Well, it's going to have a sequel, believe it or not. Dee Dee Lake, who is the Cross River Author Relations Coordinator, so loved this story, and she kept saying, "You got to write a sequel. You got to write a sequel." And in actuality, see, this is another one of those God things. I have another story that I had started that was probably about a quarter of the way done when I turned when I left that one and decided I'm going to write the Claiming Her Inheritance. So what I'm going to do is go back to that other story, and I am going to drop my main character from Claiming Her Inheritance into that story and take out the other character who was the protagonist of that story. So, and that's a God thing. I mean, I was having my quiet time one morning and I was thinking about that, and he just said, put Sally Clark into the story of the church. So.
And the church story is going to be a good one. It's really good. Yeah. I remember, and you've been working on that one for a while, and I'm very excited to see how that one goes. So.
Well, and there again, that's another one that started out as a short story. I wrote the original story for a class assignment for a college class, and then decided I want to make this into a novel or a novella, and that's where it's at right now. So yeah, I'm very excited.
Is it the novella stage? Yeah, that'd be awesome. That'll be great. Okay, let's see. So let's get into a little bit more about the book. We've touched on the premise, that this is two people who are vying essentially for the same thing, and one of them is kind of egging the other one on a little bit by inviting them to step out of their comfort zone. Is any of this at all based in reality? I mean, do you have, was there anything that kind of piqued, that kind of prompted this idea for you, or anything in your life that you might have pulled from to create these characters, or the scene?
Yeah, it did. And I mean, the idea started out, when it started out, they were vying for the same thing, but like I said, it morphed a lot, and that's not the premise of the story anymore. What I kind of wanted to put forth in the book was partly my struggle with the fact that society constantly puts on women to be so beautiful all the time. And so the character in the book is a plain Jane. She sees herself as a plain Jane, and that's kind of addressed. And the cattle baron guy, that's how he sees her the first time he meets her. He describes her as a plain Jane. But when she comes to the ranch and she spends that time on the ranch, and as she begins to grow, she changes inwardly, and it affects what he begins to see on the outside. So, and the full premise of the book is just the fact that God loves us for exactly who we are, and that we don't have to be, this Adonis or Aphrodite type of person. God just loves us. So
yeah. If I remember correctly, the main character is Sally, is a military veteran as well, correct?
Yep, she's a Marine. There's a lot of things.
You did pull that out of me.
Gee, I wonder where that came from.
I have no idea, but you need to let everybody else in on that.
Yeah. People who know me they are probably going to see a lot of my personality in Sally. And I did it that way on purpose, really. I mean, I know myself better than I know anybody else. So there were just a lot of things about me that ended up being in Sally. And as a Marine veteran myself, and I know there's actually people out there who enjoy, protagonists that are in the military or that they're military veterans. And so I thought, I'm going to throw that out there, because there really just aren't that many women Marines.
Mm-hmm.
Not like there are women who have served in the Navy or the Air Force or the Army. So the Marines, we're an elite force, and I'm very proud to have served in the Marine Corps. And so it was like, let's make Sally a Marine.
Yeah.
Especially
because
thank
you for your service, Deb.
Yeah. Oh, you're welcome. Serving in the military gives a character a completely different outlook on life than someone who's never served in the military. And so that plays a huge part of Sally's struggle.
Okay. Makes sense. Susan says, I love that her inner beauty shines through and makes her outwardly beautiful, talking about Sally in the book, and that's neat. Rebecca asks, what is your best marketing advice, and what are you doing for this new book?
My best marketing advice? Rebecca, you would have to ask that question. I think I would say the best advice I could give would be to build your email list, because those are people that you can connect with directly. You don't have, anybody filtering out that message like you do on social media, whether your social media is Instagram or Facebook, Twitter, or whatever. That your message is getting directly to the inbox, and it's their choice whether to open that email or not. And what am I doing with this book? I'm definitely reaching out. I reaching out to my email subscribers. I am posting on Facebook, and I'm also posting out there on YouTube, and I'm running Amazon ads. So
Great. And we're doing this. We're doing Facebook Live.
Yeah, doing this.
Yeah. All righty. Well, you know what? We're getting close to the end of our allotted time. We could keep talking, I think, for quite a while. But we do want to have one more giveaway that we want to do. So we'll give Susan a chance to draw in another name. And let's just run through a couple more quick questions, Deb. Where can people find your book?
They can find my book at crossrivermedia.com. They can find it on Amazon, but they can also find it on Books to Read, which is the, it's connected to Draft to Digital. So if you don't have a Kindle, but you have a Nook, you can go to bookstoread.com and get a Nook version or Kobo or Apple Books. So it's out there in a lot of different places.
Awesome. Fantastic. And where can they find you?
Me, they can find it Debra L Butterfield.com, and that's Debra, like it says on the screen. They can find me on Facebook, Debra L Butterfield author. So, and I'm also on Twitter, Debra's blog. My name was too long to have it the full name on Twitter.
Oh, there you go.
But I don't spend that much time on Twitter, so.
Yeah.
Okay. The winner of our the winner of our signed print book is Kathy Cravey.
There you go, Kathy. Congratulations.
Yay.
Congratulations. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us this evening. Deb, do you have anything else that you want to say before we close tonight?
Well, just thank you to everybody that's here participating. I love that they're here. I really appreciate my readers. Where's an author without a reader? So I love that you're all here, and I really hope that they enjoy the book. Love to hear from you. Deb at crossrivermedia.com if you have any feedback about the book. Love to hear from you.
All right. Sounds great. All right. Thanks, everybody, for coming. And we will do it again. Next month, we are releasing Surviving Carmelita. So we'll see if we can get the author to join us for another live interview next month. We will talk to you all again later. Thanks so much. Bye.
Thanks, Tammy. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.